What a lovely design for this pocket watch. This is a Hebdomas from about 100 years ago. And look at this bridge, this open bridge. And we can also view in here the balance wheel as well. And the literal translation in Greek or Latin for Hebdomas is Holy Week. And that's really to emphasize the fact that this only needs to be wound once every week, or 8 days here, so an extra day. And it was patented by Irene Aubrey in 1888. And he eventually retired early 1900s, 1912. And a gentleman called Otto Schild took over the company in 1913. So a little bit of history there, that by 1918 they were producing 1,000 watches per day from 1,000 workers. Well, you can do the math. And they were still making these up through the mid-1990s. And in fact now, if you look under the Aero Watch brand, you can still find some. Well, let's get this opened up and see if we can get this back running again. Looks like just here I can get my case knife in and see if we can open the back. It's a bit stiff. That's it. Now, this watch was sold to me at auction as a silver watch, but I don't think it is. And if we just look here, can you see this GF mark? That's gold filled. So this is a white gold filled watch. Kind of interesting. And then one of the unique features of this pocket watch is this huge mainspring barrel here. And there's a mainspring in here that's 1.2 meters long, if you can believe it, that's running this watch for that full 8 days. And this cross and medals motif is telling us this is a Schild era watch. And I don't know if you can see the medal dates, but they range from awards in Geneva in 1896 to Milan in 1916. So we know this is post 1916. And the other thing that helps us with dating the watch is that this is a stem set for the time. See if that works. Yeah. So that's working. As opposed to a pin set. So the pin sets were pre-1920. That would indicate this is post-1920. But then I'm also seeing an inscription on the back. Do you see this? Just here. J. Woods, Christmas 1921. I think that dates our watch, don't you? This is a 1921 Hebdomas, 100 years old. Lovely. And just on the edge of the barrel here, we've got the click, which seems to be working, so we'll need to just hold that back and take all of the wind out of the watch. That's just best practice before we do any work on it. That's good. To remove the movement, we'll need to just pop this crystal off with the bezel. And we'll take the crown out too. There's a couple of movement case screws just at the bottom here, and that should allow us to drop the movement out. It should come out forwards. Yeah. Just want to be careful with those hands. We'll need to get those taken off the dial here to remove the dial as well. Lovely with the bluing. That goes really nicely with the dial. And there's a couple of dial screws here just holding the dial in place. I won't take those out, I'm just going to loosen them. Little dial washer. And the hour wheel. And this is friction fit, so we'll use the Cannon pinion remover to get that off. Just remove the balance complete and the bridge here just for protection, keep that safe. We'll take that apart in a little bit. What's this? I see we've had a previous watchmaker in here that's done some repairs. Look at this pallet fork. It looks like it's been soldered together from 2 pieces of brass, possibly. Well, we'll get that taken out and have a close look at it. I also see some work down here at the bottom balance jewel as well. I think it looks like, they look like graver marks to me. But we'll get this out and take a look later. There's something unique about this escape wheel as well. It's actually running backwards, and there's a reason for that that will be revealed under this plate. We're finding here we've got more gears than normal. Do you see this? All the way through here. And there's an extra gear. And that means that our escape wheel actually runs in the opposite direction, which also extends the time that we can run the watch for. That's part of its secret. But it does make it a little strange to work on, because with the escape wheel running in the opposite direction, the pallet fork is also different. The escape jewel is on the opposite side. Oh, I just broke that. Or it was already broken. we'll have to add that to the list. Now to get this mainspring out, we need to undo that center arbor. And I thought, let's make a little tool for this. It's possible to use some tweezers, but there's a risk of damage. So I've measured the holes, and we'll just run those numbers up on the milling machine here, and we'll make ourselves a couple of pins and see if we can get a simple tool together that will allow us to open that mainspring barrel. Now the pins need to be about 0.8 of a millimeter diameter, so I'll use a slightly larger steel rod here, and we'll just grave that down to the right dimension and round that off. And here we go. I think it's self-explanatory. And the other thing to note about this is it's anti-clockwise, so we have to turn this in a clockwise direction to undo. And should be able to open up our mainspring. There it is. Wow, it's a monster. Oh, I'm seeing a little bit of wear on this gear here. The mainspring might be original. A few hairs and some dirt. And we've got this bridle contraption here for slippage to prevent overwinding. Well, we'll keep working on the main movement and probably remove that spring, I think. Take a close inspection of it. This part is all for the setting lever. I'm going to remove these springs here just before we undo the screw, because you know what happens if I don't. Better get this one done as well. I'll just loosen that a little bit and then I'll lift the spring tension up. That's it. And this is the setting lever. That small screw at the top can stay in there for now. That's the one that goes into the crown stem. And that's the yoke. Yeah, okay, so that screw has come right through the plate. I don't like that. Well, it's holding this bottom jewel in place, but we'll get that out and take a look at it. I need to do that anyway because we want to get these cleaned up. There'll be a whole jewel underneath this cap jewel, and we'll want both pristine and then re-oiled. Yeah, do you see these graver marks here? I think somebody's put in a modified screw and it's slightly long, but also the dimension might be slightly narrower as well, and somebody's used a graver here to close up the hole slightly. It's an old trick. Well, we'll get all of these parts into the cleaner. These wheels too. I'll give them an inspection when they come out. Just want to make sure there's no damage. either to the gears or any of the pivots. Alright, we'll run that for about 10 minutes I think in a cleaning solution, and then we get a couple of rinses and a dryer. While that's going, we'll get that mainspring out of the mainspring barrel. I'll have to speed this up, it's taking forever, it's huge. And here's that bridle here, and it's designed to slip inside the barrel. So it's not broken, it's just all part of the spring mechanism. And to get access to the other cap jewel, we really need to take this apart. Oh, so make sure we treat that with extra care, the hairspring. And we'll take that off. Well, it looks okay, but that's an odd looking jewel. But I don't think that is a jewel, is it? It's more like metal than it is crystal. The regulator arm. And this is our other jewel. And now there aren't many jewels in this watch at all, so I counted 7 jewel watch if you count that impulse jewel as one, if not a 6 jewel watch. Well, it's pretty low. So I'm not looking for the most accurate railroad performance out of this. In goes the magic tablet. We'll clean our dial up. With everything out of the cleaner now, we can have a look around and see what we've got. No particular order, but we've got this broken case screw here. That will need replacing. A pallet fork there had a repair done to it, which I wasn't too comfortable with. I think we may get this replaced if we can find a replacement for it. On the mainspring, it all looked okay, the spring itself. This is a separate part, it's not broken. This is the sliding bridle, just a separate piece. But the winding arbor here was really quite worn, and I'm not sure that we can repair that. Possibly. This jewel, the cap jewel here, had a screw that was too long. I may want to just trim that down a little bit to remove any risk of interference. And then on this bridge here, we had these 2 screws that were different. One's a blued screw and this one's a silvered screw, so one of these is wrong. And I think that's about it. It's time to put this back together again. So this bridle here has this notch in it. Can you see it? It's designed to allow it to slip between one of 4 or 5 notches if we overwind the mainspring. I set that in dry. It's not designed to operate with any kind of grease or braking grease, but we'll see if this works for us. And I don't have a mainspring winder that's big enough for this, so we'll have to hand wind it in. Nearly there. if you can see the damage here on this arbor. I've got a replacement, fortunately. I think we'll go ahead and do that. It might have been possible to just straighten those gears up a little bit, but since I have this, we should use it. And then we had that screw just a little bit long. I'll use my diamond encrusted file here. I should make short work of it. And since we do have a Swiss watch, I'll have to polish the end. Okay, it's just an excuse to get my screw head polisher out. And that pink paste I've put in there is just a little bit of diamond paste. And this is our result. I'll just add a tiny drop of oil onto the jewel, and we can put our refurbished tiny screw back. And hopefully this won't protrude through the other side of the plate. I'm using a heavier grease here for these parts. And the only time this lever really operates is when we're pulling the crown and crown stem out to change from winding to setting the watch. And we just need to be a little bit careful with these springs, of course. So I want to put a couple of winds on the screw, and then we can set it, and we'll just tighten up that screw, add a little grease here. Anytime we get metal on metal, it's just best to put a little bit of grease on it. This signature open heart design, seeing the balance wheel and all its glory through the front of the watch, was really what attracted Otto Schild to the company in the first place. And he took it over in 1913. But Schild was impacted by the Russian Revolution, which happened a few years later, in 1917. But recovered later on, so with production ramping up in La Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland, and then a decline, really. Pocket watches declined as wrist watches came to the fore in the 40s. But a resurgence later in the 1960s had Schild relaunch his famous 8-day pocket watch. And around that time you could see some pretty creative designs, including a complete skeleton watch. And that was done to compete with Audemars Piguet, who had also released a skeleton pocket watch. But this didn't last long, and the company became insolvent around 1979, although it trickled on for a little while after that. I've just got to remember here to do this anti-clockwise to tighten this back up. So we can still see some and find some of these pocket watches in recent days. Now I'm inspecting these as they've come out of the cleaner. I just want to make sure that these pivots here and all of the gears are in good shape and we have no damage. And we'll start to put these back into the main plate. Our upside down escape wheel first. Normally driven by a fourth wheel, but in this case a fifth wheel when we count all the way back to the other wheel that's underneath and operated by the mainspring. We'd normally count the mainspring as wheel number 1 in our count up. This is just the winding arm, but I've just got to slot that in behind the clutch here, and we can get our crown and stem back in after giving it a little bit of lubrication. And now for the tricky part. I've got to line up all of those pivots onto this half plate here. And one thing I noticed, do you remember we had that odd number of blue screws and silver screws? Well, I found 2 blue screws here and 3 silver screws. I think I'm going to change these around. There are 3 screws holding this half plate down, and we'll use the pair of blue screws on the bridge plate. I think somebody got these mixed up. That's okay. Now I'm not going to screw this plate all the way down. I just want to make sure before we do that all of those pivots are lined up. Now we don't have jewels to damage on this plate, but it can also cause a lot of damage to the pivots themselves as well as the bushings. You see here how that's just got to slide back over. It's not quite angled correctly, is it? I think I got it. Let's try it. Yeah. Okay. We can tighten this down. And the escape wheel bridge. Actually a escape wheel cock. Two screws for a bridge or more, and 1 for a cock. Okay, that all looks free. And we'll just check the end shake and side shakes, make sure there's not too much wear. That one's a little bit worn, that bushing there, do you see it? All the others are pretty good. One more test. Now what are we going to do with this? I'm really not too happy with this pallet fork, and I do have a possible replacement here I'd like to try. As long as it's the same size. It comes from a Hebdomas 8-day pocket watch. It hasn't been used in a long time though, and I can see a little bit of rust on here. So we're going to need to get this all cleaned up. And then we'll test it in the pocket watch and just check that everything's okay with it. I just need to get this the right way. And we'll put the bridge back on. I just want to check the operation. So the escape jewel on this is on the right side, or at the top of the screen here. Just get that centered correctly. And we can lock it down. And put a little bit of wind on it here. We just want to make sure that that pallet fork clicks nicely backwards and forwards. Oh, wait a minute. That's not right. See that it's not releasing the escape wheel? It's like that escape jewel is just catching the edge. I think that's a little bit too long for our watch. Let's just check the dimension of that compared to the original. 1.77. Yeah, it's slightly longer, isn't it? Okay. So we can make an adjustment here. I'll use this pallet fork warmer. And I have a small dot of shellac here. As soon as this melts, here we go. That's a telltale. I can just bring that jewel back slightly. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. We'll try that. I'll just get everything lined up again. I won't put the screws in just yet. I just want to check. Yeah, that's much better. Look at that. Okay. Happy with that. Onwards. And what we can do here is add some jewel grease, but it's not the left side jewel, it's the right side jewel here. Will load up. Just run it through 5 clicks. A little bit more. 5 more. Do that 3 times. And that just puts some jewel grease onto our escape wheel. Get rid of the excess. Okay, we'll just clean up the hairspring here. Get this back onto our balance wheel. And our cap jewel. And that gets screwed down from the other side. And the regulator arm. Why is that so stiff? Just want to make sure that the first turn of the hairspring here goes through the regulator pins, and we can try that in the watch. That doesn't seem very happy. No. What was that? Oh no. Look, I've broken the end pivot of the balance staff. That is not a good thing. I think maybe the first time I've done that. What did I do wrong here? Oh, I see. I just spotted what happened. Look at this. That cap is the wrong way around. It got put in upside down. I don't know how I managed to do that. Okay. Well, while I commiserate with myself, I think I'll do something else and straighten up the case. I'll ponder on what to do here. These parts are very difficult to come by. I was fortunate to have a few parts for this, but I don't have a balance staff. Well, the case looks nice anyway. I think I'm going to have to make my own balance staff. It might be the only thing we can do here, at least for now. And we'll do this right this time. I'll even put in the regulator first on the cap jewel. Yeah, that was such a silly mistake. And I guess the rounded end of the cap jewel just made that too long, the balance staff, and it just took out the pivot. Okay, we got it right this time. Yeah, okay. Well, obviously we'll have to pull this apart and sort out this balance staff. Just when you think everything's going well. Yeah, that's a goner, isn't it? Okay, well, we'll cut this out and take this old staff off the balance wheel and get it measured up. Alright, I've got my dimensions. So we'll need a piece of steel here. I'm starting with this one. It's about 2 millimeters. And I'll just speed through this. We'll soon get this down to size. Just making it slightly oversized, and then we can burnish it down at the end to make sure everything fits okay. Still seething about that error, but it happens. How's that looking? A little bit long. We'll do a little bit more trimming work and clean it up. And this is isopropyl alcohol. Just want to tap our balance wheel down. And we'll get the ends burnished. This polishes and hardens the end and also brings it down to the right size. Yeah, and of course, I managed to take the jewel out at the same time, didn't I? So we'll get that popped out and see if we can find ourselves a new whole jewel. Let's see, I think I need a 130, 14. So that would be 1.3 millimeters wide, and then 14 would be 0.14 of a millimeter for the hole. Just need to open this up a little bit here so we can fit our jewel back in place. And then we'll close that down. Alright, everything's back and tested. We'll put it all back together, get some oil on our cap, make sure it's the right way around, double check everything. Our roller table. Now I didn't mark where this went, but normally you would expect it at 90 degrees perpendicular to the arms of the balance wheel. I'm just going to tap this down, get it nicely seated. And then we'll set our hairspring. I didn't mark this either in my rush to get the new balance staff knocked out. I forgot to take measurements of this, but we'll try it and see how we get on. I'm being very careful here, especially with the new balance staff. I don't know for sure if this is the exact length that we want, and so I don't want to put too much stress on it. And I'm also going to set the balance wheel with a little rodico, and that way I can just move it around very carefully, make sure that the pivot is coming up through the whole jewel before we screw anything down. Make sure the bottom's done as well, and is our jewel lined up correctly there? No. Okay, let's just check and make sure that our jewel would naturally sit perfectly aligned between the pins through to the escape wheel. And I've got that angle at, what, 40 degrees? Yeah, around 40 degrees. Okay, well, so we'll apply the same metric against the balance wheel and move our stud into the right location so that we've got 40 degrees, and that means that the impulse jewel now is approximately aligned right through to the escape wheel. Let's try this. It's actually a bit trickier with a bridge to get this right, so again we're going to use some rodico here. I highly recommend it if you're working on these. Get that pivot lined up first, and then we can secure it down. Now, should be able to remove this and it should fire up like so. No? Okay. What's going on here? Very little end shake, I think. Back to the J-cut tool, and let's just bring down that staff length by a tiny amount. I'm just slightly too long. We'll try it again. Come on, yes, that's it. So nice to see. Took a little extra time to get there, didn't it, this time? Breaking that pivot. Very silly. Alright, well, let's get this side oiled up. I've already done the other side where the mainspring was. A little bit of slightly heavier D5 oil here. And a couple of grease points. We'll put this back together. A cannon pinion. It seems to be getting harder and harder to find some spares, especially for Swiss watches. I've noticed it's much easier for American brand watches. We can find those parts quite easily without necessarily having to go to a donor watch or donor watch movement. But getting these parts for these Swiss movements is becoming a real problem. And sometimes we have to resort to making them ourselves, which I appreciate. Not all of us, me included, can make all of these parts, so it does make it a challenge. Okay, we'll get our lovely dial back on top of the watch. and get these screws seated down. Look at that lovely lapis lazuli blue that they finished this dial in. Isn't that fantastic? With the blue hands, blued steel. And I believe that's silver on the motifs there, as well as the dots, the minute markers. We'll check the operation of our hands. And to recase this, we'll need to remove the crown stem here. This cleaned up really nicely. And we got a couple of case screws here. And one of them was damaged. This broke. So I've got a replacement. We'll just get that crown back and just give it one little clean up. So we can get this crystal back on. No, it doesn't seem happy for some reason. That's not closing up. Let's take another look at that. These case screws here actually sit underneath to position the movement correctly. We'll try that again. That looks better. Yeah. With that, we've come to the end of our journey with this really lovely Hebdomas 8-day pocket watch from 1920-21 with its signature open heart design. Just lovely, isn't it? With that, I'm just going to let you enjoy it. Until next time.